101. So I like to do this one because this is the one that every salesperson wants to know how to do, and it's probably the most synonymous with sales. Closing. Who's the best closer? They're going to be the most successful. They're going to earn the most money. It might be a misconception, however, in sales in general on like what closing actually is. And it was for me as well before I started this. I had a general idea, but the things that I'm going to teach you today are very, very applicable to door-to-door and pest control, but also just applicable to human behavior and interacting with humans and conveying your ideas in a way that this person is going to agree with to then be on your side, to then buy your product or your service or agree with your opinion, right? So you don't need to be selling something, a product. We're selling ourselves and our ideas and our concepts every single day. You all sold yourselves on an interview to be in this seat right now. So these things are just so applicable to everyday life, and that's why I like to teach them, because they're super relevant long after the summer, okay? So first and foremost, closing is a process, not an event, okay? Very broad statement, but already just so important, and probably a bit of a mindset shift for a lot of you in this room. If you don't close, you're just a conveyor of information, and ABC, the acronym you guys have probably all heard at least once, always be closing. And there's nothing more true than that. Just out of curiosity, when do you think, and I'll give you a hint, I did it in my pitch, when do you think the first time that I started to close the customer was?
When you took out the part-time?
Yeah, you bet. So that was the first time. It's super assumptive and kind of like a soft close to start taking notes, right? In my head, they're already doing this service. And then in their head, they're gonna start to think they're already doing this service before they give me a, yes, Jordan, I want to buy your service. That's like never gonna happen in those words. It's a process, not an event. And now it starts to make a lot more sense once they go through here. So two categories of closes. One is a soft close and the other is a hard close. So an example of the soft close was taking out my notepad and taking notes. So soft close, it's used throughout the presentation. It requires a response but not a commitment. And this is a good way of just testing the waters, gauging where they're at, seeing if they're agreeing with you, nodding, asking questions. Is this person on your side? Are they a good prospect? Should you continue to spend your time with this individual? That's like the $1 million question when you're a rookie, is like, well, how do I tell this person's interested? Okay? By doing soft closes and then seeing their response. Okay? You're gonna then realize, do I want to continue spending my time with this person? And your time out there is the most valuable. Okay, your time is way more important than their time. In a way, right? You still want to be professional and courteous and treat them with respect, but if they're not giving you the proper signs, get out, okay? Your job is not to turn an absolute no into a yes, okay? The heartbreak on the doors and when the mental game gets tough is when you're spending like 20, 30, 40, an hour with a customer, and you get to the end and you force your way to the end, and then they tell you, no, I don't want pest control, right? They probably never wanted it. You just kind of force your way through, which is a good learning experience, but not how you become efficient and not how you become a top sales rep out there. It's by testing the waters, reading the signs, and then deciding what route you want to go down. Do I poke and prod a little bit more and get out, or do I go to the finish and close them, right? And the close is asking for the sale. It's a call to action. It's a time-wise, a very small part of the sales process, but obviously a very important one. And then we'll teach you how to do that properly as well. But soft closes. So some examples.
Like, how do you act when you decide to go out? Like, how do you do it? You just
sometimes I'll tell them, like, if they're not acting the way I want them to be acting, in my experience of like someone who's going to buy, I'll literally tell them, like, okay, fair enough. I know where to poke. I know when to poke and prod. I know when not to. Have a good day. I'll just go talk to your neighbor, right? I'll tell them that. I don't know the line I use, but like, yeah, it's all good. Just wanted to check in. You know, some neighbors are mentioning pests. You guys seem to be in a good spot. Have a good day. Yeah. And try not to sound like sarcastic, like have a good day in a sarcastic way, but like genuinely, like, hey, have a good day. Like, you always want to leave on a positive note, It is not worth your time or their time to like get the last word in. Worst case scenario, they call it insight, but you're gonna have plastered all over you and you get a complaint or something like that. This is gonna ruin your day and not lead to anything good. But yeah, always respectful. Okay, all good, just wanted to check in. I was in the neighborhood. We're doing those neighbors, so I figured you might want to get on board as well. But if not, all good. Have a good day. So how long have you noticed the pest for, right? And these questions you're gonna realize are the ones that we ask in the detective stage. So by asking these at the start, you're already starting to close them. Whether the customer realizes that or not, in most cases they're gonna have no idea, but they're gonna be following along, and they're gonna be inching closer and closer to the necessary points that you're gonna need to close them. And I'll explain that when I get to the point system. Okay, so how long have you noticed the pest for? Where are they coming from? Where are they going? Is this the first time you've been noticing them? Or to add on, is this a bit of an ongoing issue for you guys? If you can get someone to admit that to you and just verbalize it out loud, no, this isn't the first time I've seen them. I've been having them for the past 5 years. That is so impactful. They might not even realize that they've been having this ant activity or this mouse or spiders or whatever it may have been. You'll be surprised, like I was telling them, like, they mentioned like spiders in the backyard. Okay, so I'm going to look at the spiders, and then I notice ants, and then I notice like maybe some mouse droppings, and I kind of joke with the customer, I'm like, well, it's pretty funny what you notice when the bug guy comes by, right? Because I'll politely and respectfully start to notice things that they may not even notice, right? Like homeowners, I never knew what a carpet ant was before I started this job. I probably wouldn't have if I didn't do this role. So they don't even know what to look for, okay? Is this the first time you've been noticing them? Is the gate going to be open when my technician comes by? Have you ever used pest control before? How long have you lived in the home for? Okay. In the detective stage, does everyone know what I'm talking about when I refer to the detective stage?
Yes.
Yeah?
Helps.
Okay. Perfect. So yeah, these are really good questions to start asking in the detective stage. I usually ask 3 to 5. And again, it's going to put you down 2 very different paths, okay? Another example is, so let's say you're in the backyard and you're looking at their ant hills, very common situation. I asked them, another good one to ask is have they ever treated for them before, right? And Pierre-Luc mentioned some of the product that they have access to, but what these homeowners are actually using, Raid, Ant-B-Gone, like over-the-counter products that actually have an adverse effect of what they're trying to do, right? So, have you ever tried to service them before? And then reply, no, I don't really care about the ants, they don't really bug me. Okay, fair enough, right? I'm gonna tell them a little bit about ants, but I'm gonna pivot to a new pest that is a pain point for them, right? Okay, yeah, the neighbors have the ants, so we'll take care of those, but the real reason I'm out here is for the mice, or the wasps, the spiders. Oh, my wife hates spiders, or my spouse hates spiders. Well, great. I can then talk about that by asking them questions to uncover the problem that is relevant to them, okay? So good sales reps are problem solvers. Great sales reps are problem finders. You never just want to assume what the homeowner's problem is. You want to uncover it by being a detective and peeling back the layers and speaking to them on a human-to-human level, by not talking at them, by talking with them, by conversing and creating dialogue. That is the best form of sales, is by communicating. Because at the end of the day, we're one human with another human talking about pests and the problem. Pretty simple. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated.
Why do you say it like that? Like I know why you say it like that, but I want you to explain. Like, why are you saying one human to another? Because what would be the opposite of that? That wouldn't be good, right?
Yeah, someone who just goes in and tries to drive home a point, and in this case it's pest, and drive home a point, whether that person wants to discuss it or not, right? And that's like where you're gonna, if you were to do that, you would be spending, once you get decent at the job, probably an hour with each person. Like if I wanted to, at the end of the day, I could spend as much time as I wanted with probably 90% of the doors that I knock on. I'm just good enough to do it. I can get in every backyard, I can talk to them, I can talk their ear off about anything, okay? If you can hold their attention for 10 seconds, you can hold it for an hour, okay? But I don't want to do that because that is my time wasted, right? I want to decide who I'm spending my time with by asking them questions, figuring out their pain points, and figuring out if they're strong enough to then have me sell them, Okay, questions?
Jordan, let's say you get to the soft close stage and then suddenly an objection or like some kind of concept pops up. How would you redirect them back to the close after you beat the objection?
It's a cycle.
Yeah.
Right? So if it was linear, right, you would then overcome the objection, or you do a close and it would continue to move forward. But that's not the reality of this sales process. So you're going to be closing them, then there's going to be questions, and there's going to be objections. We'll talk on the actual process to do that a little bit later on. But yeah, just remember it's a circle, right? And you should be getting to the soft close or a close like most of the time, because unless they reject you in the first 10 seconds and don't let you get your opening pitch out, you're going to be doing a form of a soft close, which is taking your contract out and taking notes, right? So more often than not, you'll get there. Question for Dad?
Yeah, so we sell multiple services. Can we sell a package?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with selling a standard package of like covering everything. It's not a bad thing to do. I would say it's the average thing to do.
Maybe just a little clarity on like what would be included, because it was like, oh, we sell multiple services, can we sell a package? Maybe a little clarity there, George.
Yeah, so like to cover everything would be every test we cover and every procedure that we do.
Which is included.
Yes.
It's included.
Yeah, so it's
That's
all
what I wanted to
included.
clarify.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, that would just be like, would be selling the customer a cookie cutter approach. Okay, and you're not actually talking to them to then figure out what they care about the most.
Just to the point that like, you don't have to charge differently for ants versus spiders versus wasps versus mice.
Yep.
All of those things are included in the one package. So there's not like different options that you need in terms of pricing. When Jordan's talking about that, he's just referring to what he's gonna focus on kind of to make that sale. He's gonna focus more on one thing or the other, but all of those things are included
Yep.
in the package.
Yeah, and we'll get into a week or two down the road in price dropping or increasing the price, and you're not going to really be able to do that if you're going in with all the pests, all the service at the bottom value. You don't have any wiggle room either way, right? So, but again, it's not a bad thing to do per se, but the great reps and the top ones are only focusing on the activity specific to that homeowner, and only covering ants and charging them $800 or $900, or in Earl's case, probably like $1,200 for just ants. And then if he wants, at the end, he can add in, oh, by the way, we do mice. Oh, yeah, I have some mice. Okay, this is where we do it from. Extra $200. You're at like a crazy contract with us. Okay, but we'll just focus on the basics for now, but we will get there. Yep.
Let's say I went through the process, the cycle.
Can't hear you.
Let's say you went through the cycle multiple times, and like the prospect is only interested in controlling the mice.
Sure.
What happens in terms of the service in that situation? Could you only do it for the mice?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of back to what I said. Like, yeah, no problem just doing mice. But the minimum for like anything, like even if they want, as someone was mentioning, Philly, where the customer wanted a single tree service, right? That price is going to be $800. That's a pretty challenging sale. Can you get the value of servicing one tree up to 800, right? It's a good question. Depends how good of a sales you are, depends how big of a problem it is for this person, right? In our minds, it's like, oh, one tree with ants in it, no way I'm spending $800 on that. But to that customer, it could have been years and years of them trying to service this tree, and they know how carpenter ants work, and it's a foot away from their house, and they're fearful of it, right? You don't know until you ask, and become a detective, and then realize that, and then go in on it. Okay. So I'll kind of reiterate what I said here. Become a problem finder. Every sales book is become a problem solver. I agree, but that only happens after they purchase your solution. Average sales reps always assume they know the prospect's problems. Great sales reps focus on finding the real problem and the consequences of not solving it. Okay, that's a little what I like. And then hard closes. So use when it's time to confirm the sale and get their agreement. It requires a response and a commitment, and it tells us if they're ready to buy or still have concerns or objections to address. When to hard close. When you're getting agreement, discussing activity, inspecting, discussing the scopes of the service, you're being assumptive, you're taking notes, you're building rapport, you've gone over the paperwork, and the prospect has responded positively to soft closes. Okay, a positive response to a soft close would just be like an answer, right? Yeah, a nod. When I'm by on Thursday, or my technician's by, is the gate gonna be open? Yeah, it will be. Okay, perfect. Do you have any pets here? Is the dog gonna be inside? Will be serviced? Yeah, no problem. Right? So little things like that. And then the hard close. Oh, so the next step is closing or asking for the sale. Okay, so this is when you really start to get some commitment. So an example of a hard close, and this would be, for my team, this would be after you use the paperwork as a sales tool. Okay, I don't know if the other teams know exactly what I'm talking about, but for you guys, this is what it would be. And what I'm talking about, guys, I'll mention it super quickly. A good bridge between meeting the need and then the close in the standard sales cycle would be using the contract as a sales tool. So I'm just getting my team to go over why we come 4 times, talk about the warranty, money back guarantee, the number they call if they need a reservice, going through the price as well, put on it. And then after that, you use one of these hard closes for the first time to hopefully have them say yes. And you don't need to go back because you've gotten ahead of most of the objections by kind of sticking to the process and the system that we have in place.
There's some good info on Pulse.
Not on Pulse, on the training site.
No, on Pulse is.
I'm using context and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so on Pulse, there's some information on that. I haven't looked at it specifically. The video that I made is on the just general Dynamics training site. It's a video that has a picture of me on it. Maybe you guys have seen it already. But I would really recommend giving that a watch over and then speaking to your manager in the best ways they want you guys to implement it on the doors. Okay, so some examples of hard closes is perfect. I'll just need to grab some info real quick. How do I spell your first name? Okay, as soon as I get this filled out, we'll be all set and I can get you lined up. Would you like to take one of the spots that I have on Friday? Can I schedule you for Friday for the afternoon? All sound good? Fair enough. The one that I personally use is, the one that I personally use is adding in a free item or a free service at the end. It's so much easier, so it's a little psychological, I guess, trick, right? You want them to agree to buying your service, so much easier to get them to agree to having the deck service at no cost, or the garage, right? Technically those things are all included anyway, but I'll go through the price and I'll say, so when we're by on Thursday, did you want me to throw in the deck? I know we mentioned some ads, I took some notes, did you just want me to include that? Does it cost anything else? Nope. For you, I'll throw it in. Okay, sounds good. Perfect, in your first name? So I just close it. Pretty underwhelming. They don't really even know like what occurred, but they do at the same time. Like it's pretty obvious that like I just closed them, right? And then you'll get into taking their information and like the important details of like postal code, phone number, and all that good stuff. Okay. So another example: schedule close. Oh, will you be here on Friday? Yes. Perfect. Will morning or afternoon work better for you? And perfect. And sorry, your first name. So I'm Jordan, by the way. Nice to meet you. How do you spell the last name? And then you're getting into the details of that. But they're going to know the price and everything at this point because you would have gone through that prior, obviously. Okay, and so the magic closing formula. So this title is ironic, in case you guys didn't pick up on it, because there is no magic to this whatsoever, right? It's kind of like a science experiment, and maybe when you're young, you see like, what's it, like a volcano that's like baking soda and vinegar. And you're like, oh my gosh, like how does that happen? Like that's so magical. Like how is that possible? And then when you're older, you realize, oh, it's just baking soda and vinegar, right? It's ratios, it's ingredients used at the right time, in the right place, in the right amounts that are gonna equal the end result that you're looking for, okay? And then the people that win the science fair are not the people that can make the explosion, it's how nice does the volcano actually look. okay? Because that's really what makes the difference between a good volcano and a great volcano. Third place, second, and first. It's not what you say, but how you look saying it, which is so much more important than the words we actually say, okay? So just kind of a simple analogy to remember. So the magic closing formula, 5 steps: inspection, assumption, note-taking, filling out the paperwork, and report. Doing each step will move you closer and closer to a sale, and the close, okay, or the call to action will be easy as a result of perfecting 1 to 5. How much?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay, so assumptions. So number 1. So the number 1 thing you can do to be assumptive in behavior when speaking with the prospect is to inspect the areas of activity and actively take notes on what you discuss. If I don't make a sale out there and I go and I think about, oh man, like what went wrong, more often than not is because I got lazy. I thought it was a lay down sale and I didn't do the inspection. So I lost a bunch of points in the process and read the situation wrong. And I'll explain the point system in a minute here. But getting into the backyard is crucial. It's so important. It takes down the barrier of the door. It gets them off the doorstep. So you're no longer a door-to-door salesperson, but a backyard salesman or a front yard salesman or a front walkway salesperson. It doesn't really matter just as long as you're not on the door. Plus their hand is no longer on the doorknob, so they can't close it on you, okay? It's also gonna build time. It's gonna kind of put your nerves at ease, knowing that you're no longer on the front step and you're in the backyard. And you've kind of accomplished the first hurdle, which is just to get their attention and curiosity, and now you have some time to explain yourself and you know they're not just gonna close the door on you anymore. So that's important for your mental game out there. Makes them feel like they should be doing this, portrays a high level of confidence, gives a feeling that everyone you speak to is doing the service, and it gets them feeling like they're doing it even before they agree. Okay, so both inspection and note taking accomplish all those. Assumptive language. So again, little things that do make the difference. So don't say if you get this service, but when we come out, what will be important is, or when we're here on Thursday, what we're gonna do on your home is. So what I just said. So these things are kind of all the same thing, but using when instead of if. Instead of saying the technician, it's my technician, the company, my company, okay? Because you guys are kind of running your own company out there in a way, right? You're all aware you're not employees, you're independent contractors. So act like it. So be prideful in what you do out there because it reflects you as a person more than just really insight as solutions out there, okay? So just keep that in mind when you're knocking and talking to customers. Inspection. So, we touched on this a little bit, but it's the most assumptive thing you can do. And when I miss a sale, it's because I just didn't bother with the inspection. I got lazy, and that's all it is. It was just laziness. There's no, in my mind, justification as to why I didn't do it, except I was lazy, and it cost me money. So this changes it from a sales call to an initial inspection visit. Builds value, gives the opportunity to build rapport. Right? You're walking into someone's backyard, and you notice flowers, if you're interested in flowers, or a mountain bike, if you're more interested in mountain biking, you can touch on it a little bit. Explain the scopes of service that will address their problem areas, takes the conversation off the doorstep, makes it impossible to shut the door, makes it psychologically more difficult for them to say no to you, or they want to think about it. And if that's the case, 99.9% of people won't call you back. Okay, it's as simple as that. Also, being assumptive, although to the rookies it might seem a little bit forceful, not aggressive, but what's the word I'm looking for?
Aggressive, yeah.
Yeah, maybe a little bit aggressive to like, okay, when we're here on Thursday, morning or afternoon. Pushy, that's a better word. It's actually a lot more psychologically distressing for a human to be asked the question, do you want to buy this product? Because what they're going to do, or what we would do, is we would, in our minds, put all the pros and cons to this service. I have ants, but this. Or I do have mice, but this. All my neighbors are doing it, but that. And that is distressing for them, okay? What's a heck of a lot easier for them is to agree to a Friday afternoon. Just works so much better, flows so much better, and it's just a win-win situation for everybody. That is true, there's science behind that. But if you can kind of like then believe in that process a lot more, you're only going to be better for it when on the doors. And when you, over time, experience, I mean, you may never experience this again, but people's kids' roofs falling down because of carpenter ants. Once they're out there, they'll just start interacting with these people and realize how much people hate ants and mice, and you'll probably see some carpenter ant damage, and then your belief in the actual service will build so much more, and then you'll be a lot more confident in selling someone an ant service or a mice service that costs $800. Okay? That only comes with time and knocking some doors. Taking notes. When speaking about their activity, right? So the first time you want that agreement out is the second they mention some kind of past activity. Put it right in the binder, you're ready to take notes. Very, very assumptive. It demonstrates that you assume that they'll be treated. It shows that you care enough about what they're saying to note it down. And has the psychological effect of making them feel bad or not moving forward with you today because you've already written things down. And it just shows that you're not offering a cookie cutter approach, you're tailoring it to them. And it's good just to refer back to when you're putting notes into the system. The note that I take, I can remember them pretty well. Sometimes someone will be talking and I'll literally just write down ants on a piece of paper, right? It's more so for just the process or like the action of writing notes than like actually having me remember. For you guys, it might be a little bit different. You might actually refer back to it, but rapport, finding common ground between you and another person. Okay, so it makes you feel likable, and people buy from people they like. A lot of you are going to get sales on your first day, and a bunch of rookies will in this room. It happens every year, it'll happen again. You guys are all quite prepared, as I can see. Some of those sales might be because you're ant experts or mouse experts. Probably a lot of the sales are just going to be because you have good energy and people like you and they want to buy from people they like. Okay? You don't have to have every answer to every single question. You don't have to guarantee them 5 bait boxes or 10 bait boxes or whatever because they ask for it. You just need to be professional and friendly, courteous, and convey that to the homeowner. Okay? And yeah, just be like a good, likable person out there. And these people will buy from you. Okay? But ask a lot of questions. Be actually interested in what you're talking about. So going back to like the flower bed example or mountain bike, if I like mountain biking more, I'm not going to talk about the flowers. Like, oh, beautiful tulips, and all of a sudden this person is, like, thank you so much, and starts talking about tulips. Well, I don't know anything about tulips, so it's like, then it comes off pretty fake. And having fake rapport, in my opinion, you're just better off not doing rapport than fake rapport. Because people can read into that pretty easily, and that's a super salesy thing to do. Okay, we're kind of like, hey, how's your day going? They know that you don't really care about it. You're just doing that to do it because you think that's the right thing to do. Kind of same thing with rapport. Right? Be interested out there, and and it will go well. Relate it back to your own experiences and ask a lot of questions. So going through the detective stage, it accomplishes a lot, and one of them is rapport. Okay, when you get to their backyard, you're asking these questions in a non-detective way. Ideally, you're walking around your yard, you're checking out the shed, you're looking in the garage, you're casually asking them these questions as you kind of maneuver throughout the property. And people like to hear themselves talk. Okay, they like to hear their own voice. Even if it is about pests, it's very conversational. It's not you getting into the backyard and then going, a million miles a minute on ant activity, because that's a little bit aggressive in my opinion. You want to ask some questions, build some rapport, build some trust, figure out the situation, and then you go in on the ants and the mice and the pest activity that you guys have been studying for weeks and weeks and weeks. But the average rep will do that. This person's like, I have ants in my backyard. And then you guys are just clenched your fists, ready to go. Like, oh boy, let me tell you about ants. There's a time and place for that. It's not at the very beginning. Okay? Filling out the paperwork. An amazing tool in the sales process, one that the customer can feel and touch, and you'll leave the customer with a copy. It will help you get ahead of a lot of objections and will prevent them from asking them after you go to close. Okay, so again, if I was to go back in 24 hours and ask the homeowner, hey, what are we doing step by step for pests? And what do I do on the second visit and I don't do on the first, or my technician does? They're not gonna know. They're gonna know that I'm a professional and I get rid of their pests. What they do care about, more so, is the warranty. What is the risk of working with Vantage? Who do I call if I have an issue? Why are you coming 4 times? How is 4 times going to be beneficial to get rid of my pests? Okay? And then of course the price, which they want to know from the very couple seconds, but we're skilled enough to kind of hold that to the end, to then build value, to have the value outweigh the cost. And that's how people justify it and buy eventually, because value more than cost. So who do I call if I have any questions? Why can't I just do a one-time service? How often will you be coming? Is there a warranty? How does the payment work? All that good stuff. At the end of the day, you're gonna probably get to know these customers relatively well, but you're still a stranger. You've known them for an hour. You're still a door-to-door salesperson, right? You always gotta overcome that. So the reason I like to use it is like, hey, don't take my word for it, right? Whether you believe me or not, they're gonna believe you to an extent if they ever buy from you. It's like, hey, take this legal document for it, right? Take Insight's brand name, look at Insight, Google us, right? Those things that doesn't come from my mouth, but comes from the document or the internet, and thousands of reviews. So that's why I like to use it, because it really drives home that point. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. Is the service recurring year after year, or is it
Yep.
1 year only? So it's recurring automatically.
Well, all
recurring?
they're signing up for is a 1-year service,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's a date, not a marriage. And you can tell them that.
Okay.
Yeah. A little analogy that I use, yeah.
Will it restart automatically?
Yeah.
It's on a credit card. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they have to cancel if they want to cancel.
Correct.
Okay.
Just like any subscription-based model,
Yeah.
Netflix, Amazon Prime, whatever. But good question. Okay, and then that's the agreement we use. Okay. So $1 million question is, how do I know when I'm ready to close? When you're getting agreement, discussing activity. Oh, did we have this?
Kind of, but let's jump to points because we got to move on to the section.
Yeah. Okay, so last thing, so this is something that I implemented, I think, last year or 2 years ago, and this is like a point system just to kind of conceptualize this concept. So everything you're doing out there is going to earn you some type of points. Okay, this isn't science-based. These numbers aren't like proven or anything. This is just kind of how I came up with them. So if you do an inspection, you can get anywhere from 10 to 40 points, right? By just doing an inspection and even just getting into their backyard and not talking about pests, which would be pretty silly to do, you're just gonna get 10 points automatically, okay? 40 points would be a thorough inspection. You're getting down under the deck, you're getting to the back of the shed, probably get some cobwebs in your face in the process of doing so. If you have like a little light up there, you're looking in the cracks and crevices. That would be an example of a 40 point. Assumption, 1 point per. So every time you use assumptive language or assumptive statement, you're getting a point. Taking notes, between 5 to 10 points. So even if you write "ands" on a piece of paper, that would be 5 points in itself. And then 10 points is more detailed. Filling out the paperwork, 10 points. So that's when you're using the paperwork as a sales tool. So again, between meeting the need and closing, rapport, points vary, how well you get along with this person. Maybe you both like tulips, so that's going to be a lot of points compared to someone who doesn't. And then asking for the sale or the actual close, 1 measly point. But an important measly point, because without that, you're never going to close someone, okay? But the weight, the misconception is that all the weight is on the close. The weight of the process is on the process itself. Doing everything right. So when you do close, it's simple, it's easy. They say yes, they want it, they're down for it. Okay, they don't have to talk to the spouse, they don't have to check the budget, they don't have to call their neighbor, they don't have to look at the reviews. They just want to do it. And it will happen a lot if you're good at it. We get good at it. Okay? So no engagement, 0 points. Yeah, so this is the points required to close different types of prospects. So 0, 25, 50, 75, and then 100, right? So I can roll out of bed, and so I've been doing this for 5 years. Before coffee even, I could probably do a good 80-point presentation. I've just been disciplined enough over the years to do it properly, not skip steps. So I can go and close anyone from 80 up pretty easily, okay? I gotta work a little bit harder at anything above. Your guys' opening pitch on Monday is probably gonna be, I don't know, I don't wanna say a point because I don't wanna offend anyone, it's gonna be low. It's not gonna be very good, okay? So you're gonna have to really focus on hitting all of the points to have a decent chance at closing a prospect, okay? Probably a lot of your points are gonna come from rapport, right? Like I mentioned, just them liking you. What you don't want to do is start being lazy and skipping steps by not doing an inspection, by not building rapport, by not taking notes. Because what ends up happening is before you realize it, your call it roll out of bed pitch through bad habits is quite low. Even though you think you're doing it right, in reality you're missing a lot of steps. And that's when you go to close people and they're just not buying. People aren't buying, they're not listening to me. Well, if you reflect on kind of what you're actually doing out there, it's often because you're missing a lot of points from one section, a little points from various sections, which does add up to a lot of points. So something just to think about and to add a visual on top of that. And then of course, as you get better, your standard roll out of bed pitch will just be a lot higher because you're just getting naturally good at it. Cool. Any questions before I give Daryl? Yep.
So basically, if you only need to earn points and you can focus on so many different tests to close someone, so how come sometimes you can't get a sale? Like, is it because you didn't do something right, like you didn't handle the objection right, or like how does that happen?
Some people just aren't going to buy anything ever. Okay. Some people,
The need doesn't really exist.
what?
Maybe it's
Yeah, the need doesn't exist.
Doesn't
They don't
Yeah.
perceive it as a problem or an issue. They're busy. You knock on their door, right? Like you don't get the time of day to close them. However, if I'm a prospect that's pretty interested, they're asking questions, and I get to the stage of where I'm going through the paperwork, and then I'm closing them, I close probably 90% of those people in the first try.
But
Where
if
I'm
I
like,
assume that I knock on that door, I like tick all the boxes, I'm going to get that sale, and generally it will happen.
well, this is not a science. This is something that
No, I
I made
know,
up
sure.
myself. So
Yeah.
it's a system in place that isn't bulletproof, but it's a good way to conceptualize how to properly do it.
It's a good way to think about it,
Yeah.
right? Like, I really like the point system. I like that explanation because I think it's a good way to just realize that, hey, like Jordan said, most of the weight isn't on asking for the sale, right? That's not where the sale is made. That's one measly point, like Jordan said. An important point, but one point in the process. The real, like, where the real work is the process.
Yeah.
And sales are made by following that process, not by asking for the sale in the perfect way. It's actually by all the steps that lead up to that point. So yeah, like Jordan said, this isn't a science. This is a way to conceptualize using these steps in the process to make more sales.
Yeah, you're making it harder on yourself to make the important part easier.
Right.
Or vice versa, you're lazy, you don't do the points. When it comes to the part that matters, which is you ask for the sale or the close, well, that's when you're going to run into a heap of problems, objections, concerns, questions, because you didn't follow the process. Yeah, but good question. It's like it's good to think about it in the way that you are, because then you're thinking about it. Yeah.
When you are building the report, how do you react when the prospects don't talk way too much? Just
Okay, that's a good question. So we asked, what do you do in rapport if the customer's talking too much about anything not related to pest control? That's something that drives me crazy because I'm very direct and to the point. Like, let's, is this gonna happen or not? But obviously, still very professional. Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, that's awesome, sweet, like nodding along, and then I'll just rein it back in. So about the ants or about the mice, pretty simple, as easy as that. But yeah, you will realize that a lot of people, although they're nice, they're not buyers. Although they're talking to you, doesn't mean they're gonna buy, right? So a lot of people talk just to talk, Maybe they're lonely, maybe they just want to talk about the weather for so long. So that's where asking questions related to pest control and basing your perception of them on those answers is what's really going to tell you if this person's like legitimate about pest control and just happens to be nice, or is just nice and not wanting pest control.
Let's give a big round of applause for everyone.
Okay, one last question.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if third party went into any categories for
Sorry?
like third party, like saying that's what everybody does it.
Yep.
Like, that's what Mary's doing, that's what Mary's doing as well. Like does that go in any categories for points?
Assumption, I guess. But yeah, third party is
Kind of more of
always,
a closing process, right? That would be more
Yeah.
like opening.
Yeah, but again, third party, if you just go through it and you're like, I'm servicing Mary, Bob, and Jeff. If you look at the third party as a point system, that'd be like 2 points.
Okay.
Or if you go through, hey, it's Jeff at 5 Applewood, the one with the red Porsche, all right? So to take the extra 10, 15 seconds on third party to do it properly is gonna make the rest of your job so much easier.
Okay.
Yeah, by not getting lazy and skipping it, like you might time. Okay, thanks guys.
Beautiful.
Thank you, George.